and welcome to another episode of Cheap Smut. My name is Katie Mizell.
And my name is Carl Mizell.
And this is a very special episode, our very first author interview.
I cannot believe it. And this is, it's just special.
It is.
It's just special all around. And we're not going to dilly-dally and make her sit there and stare at us. Oh, she's taking a drink. But let's just get right into it. She has written, we agreed on the term countless books.
Yep.
But if you're listening to this episode, it's because you probably tuned in to the episode wherein Katie and I, along with our friend Josh, covered Not All Himbos Wear Capes, which is the first book in her Villainous Things series. Please clap wherever you're at, whenever you're listening to this. For C. Rochelle, our first author profile. How are you, C. Rochelle?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this.
You should be.
I'm already a little sweaty, but I think we'll be okay.
That's all right. I'm always sweaty. My meds make me so sweaty.
Yeah.
So I'm just like lightly greasy all the time.
I'm just an anxious potato. So
Just an anxious potato with an elegantly messy bun.
I know this is I can never wear my hair down because no one would recognize me. That's literally my author logo. It's literally my brand is my my banner. I was at my first book signing over the weekend, and my banner is just my big avatar with my big bun at the top. So it's just.
I just now realized, every TikTok I've ever seen of you, you've got your hair, you've got your mom bun going on.
I think some very early ones, because I joined TikTok in like 2020. Some very early ones, you might catch me with my hair down, but it's a rare sighting.
I'm not going to stalk that far back.
I never have that problem. I'm bald.
Very bald, my love.
But you could very easily just, if you wanted to go to a smut con and hide, you could just Clark Kent it.
I literally could just take my hair down and nobody would know.
And that is your superhero or villain secret identity. I just did that for you.
That's right. We need a good name, though. We need a good name, and I'm not going to be able to think of one on the spot because that's the hardest part of these books. I'm telling you that right now.
You know what? I can imagine. And let's just kind of jump right into it. One of the things that we really loved about Not All Himbos Wear Capes is how you just made it part of the book where you're like, yeah, the good names are taken.
They are. They really are. And like, that's the thing, like talking about sweating, like me trying to double, triple check that a hero or villain name wasn't already taken by Marvel or DC because they would come for me.
Oh my God.
Like they would come for me. And so I was like sweating over that. And I'm still scared that I've like missed one, but.
Unless it's, I mean, there was a Marvel character named Paste Pot Pete.
There was?
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you get down to like the D levels, I think they're going to be like
the D list.
You're actually doing us a favor. So give it just a quick backstory. We were talking off pod. You had a day job. Are you fully committed to the writing now?
Yeah, I left my job, my full-time day job in March 2022. We're in 23, right? I don't even know what year it is anymore.
Years, who needs them?
I don't know what day it is. But yeah, I went to school for and was working in graphic design and marketing. And yeah, I mean, the author thing it's a full-time job too. So I was literally working like 2 full-time jobs plus parenting, and I was like, this is not sustainable.
No, and then on top of that, which a lot of people don't realize, is in addition to the creating of the books, the whole promoting and marketing of it, is another job.
That's a whole job, and obviously I know what I'm doing with that, but it's still a lot. I've never hustled like this for a client. You know what I mean? Like,
God,
like
no.
This is it's seriously like a 24/7 hustle, but it's a lot of fun. Although, I think I go a little more hard than some authors do on social, but I've become my brand. And so that's like my face and interacting with me online.
Yeah.
It's like what people come for. So
and
I guess I'm stuck here now.
But I think you're stuck in a really good place because one of the things that strikes me, like going back through social media, is that you have you don't just write the smut, you love the smut, you love the community, you love the spicy book community, and you very clearly respect and appreciate the fan interactions.
Yeah, I love it.
is something that we are only just now starting to scratch the surface of, and it's so bizarre.
Oh my God,
It's
so good.
What was it like? Can you remember like one of the first times where a fan reached out to just genuinely express an interest, and you were just like, "What?"
Yeah, it is pretty mind blowing. I mean, at this point, I think it's pretty clear that I'm approachable, and people are just in my DMs, and they don't seem to be shy about it, which I love. Because I just love people like starting the conversation. But yeah, it's pretty awesome to have a fan come into your DMs, because I know it can be nerve wracking. Like, we seem a lot cooler than we actually are.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I'm sure it's nerve wracking. Like, I've never gone. I mean, obviously, I now have author friends that are peers, but I've still like some of my really close author friends. I literally just showed up in their DMs like, I really like your book, like, and that's like how we became friends. And that's happened to me too with other authors. Like, authors are fangirls and boys too, you know what I mean? Like, but it's pretty awesome to have someone, especially if you're having just like an off day or whatever. Like, readers have no idea how impactful it is when they leave like a really nice comment, or they don't have to like be so brave as to come into like DMs, but they could leave a nice comment. But yeah, even coming into DM and just like, gushing a little bit, it's really awesome. It's very surreal. It is surreal.
I can imagine. Do you find that those types of interactions are like the best antidote for imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think so. I don't deal with, I definitely deal with imposter syndrome, as does everyone, but I'm pretty clueless sometimes about what other people like. I am just like a completely overwhelmed, like possibly undiagnosed ADHD like hot mess. So like a lot of the time I'm not even aware of what other people are doing unless they're like my friends and I'm like, cheering them on or whatever. But the larger author community at play, or even like some really big names that maybe I should be watching what they're doing, like I don't necessarily know what they're up to. And it's probably a good thing, because there's like, I'd say I'm like middle of the pack, maybe high middle, but I'm not some huge name. And I think if I paid more attention to them, I probably would be like, oh dang, like seeing some of the stuff that they're up to that they are able to do. But yeah, I know I'm going on a tangent, but
no,
yeah.
That's the whole point of you being here.
I'm just
people listen to us all the time.
This is how I speak.
No, it's fine. Please continue.
But yeah, it's definitely like a kind word, or like just more like an unhinged word from fans. I really love and I think at this point it's pretty clear how absolutely fucking unhinged I am on social media, and so my fans they match the energy, and I love it.
God bless.
And in my DMs too, they just come in like a wrecking ball to tell me what's what, and I love it. I'm just like, okay, but like the creativity, I love the creativity of the readers too, because I may come from a marketing background and I have this like the graphic skills and everything, but especially when it comes to things that aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse, like video is not really my thing, even some of these like amazing edits that readers do, or just like creative ideas. You know what I mean? Like those aesthetic edits or whatever. Like,
I love that stuff.
Right? I'm just like, what? Because, okay, this is the thing. And this is like, I've talked about this a little on social. Like again, it's like me diagnosing myself, but like, I think I have like slight aphantasia. I didn't realize there was actually a word for it, but I don't actually see pictures when I read or when I write, which
I was telling
yeah.
Sorry,
no,
I don't
go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt you.
Yeah,
I
no,
was telling you, I have this same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize until recently that when people say like close your eyes and picture something, they mean they can see that shit.
Yeah.
I can't see anything. It's just black.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for me to picture exactly what I'm reading or what I'm writing. But I do it doesn't detract from the enjoyment for me. But what I was getting at with that is that like I might have like some Pinterest images, but I'm not keeping like full on Pinterest boards for like my book, like the aesthetics or the characters. I tried my best to like describe the characters, but that's why I usually actually get character art made, because I can like mumble out a few words to like an actually talented illustrator, or like give them some inspiration shots, like especially if I find like a model or an actor that I'm like, okay, don't obviously make it look just like them, but like that kind of look. And that way, like, we all can picture my characters, including me. So yeah, so when readers, or even my illustrators who are amazing, I've used a few different ones at this point, when they come at me with these just like mind-boggling, like, videos or like aesthetic edits or illustrations, it's amazing.
It makes you mad, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. No,
like,
totally, because how dare you? I mean, my department in art school, I was in the graphic design, like advertising department, but we also had illustrators with us. And I was just like, man, it's like a whole, because I can draw, like that's actually how I got into art school, but I can't illustrate. You know what I mean? It's like a totally different, it's such a talent. It just like blows my mind. I'm like, how? Yeah. How do you do this?
Well, that's
like, I don't understand.
So I mean, kind of in the vein of not all himbos wear capes. Like I come from comic books. I don't read like I used to because that is an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
But you'll look at some artists who can do a splash page.
Yeah.
Or do a pinup all day.
They make it look so fucking easy. Oh,
yeah,
can I swear on the show?
Yeah, you can. You've listened to this show.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
All we do is cuss.
We were talking about filling up a clown's mouth with semen in the episode where we talked about your book.
I forgot about that.
But what I was going to say is that like they'll do a pinup or a splash, but they can't do sequential. Like they can't tell a story,
Mm-hmm.
which is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah.
So what was your entry point into when you decided to write the Villainous Things series? And you mentioned it in the post where you said, hey, I know enough to be dangerous, but I was nervous that like comic book nerds.
Well, yeah, because I'm definitely not at the level of like people who go to like Comic-Cons and know all the canon.
Yeah.
And of course people like argue about canon, but
those are so fun to watch from the outside, though. I love watching nerds just fight.
From way over here.
Oh my God.
I'll be over here watching you guys.
Laughing at you. Well, actually, it was actually my dad who introduced me to Batman, like specifically, I'm going to grab it, actually.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, the Frank Miller.
I love that you knew that was just Frank Miller. You just knew.
Well, if she's talking specifically about the book.
Yeah, and I actually just recently bought, I'm like showing off my present, I actually just recently bought the special edition, which is like...
Oh, pretty.
Yeah, that is the magnificent
like
Frank Miller. Yep.
Yes, my dad's original. So I grew up like these graphic novels, The Dark Knight Returns and The Dark Knight Strikes Again, were in my house growing up. And I probably looked at them at way younger of an age than I should have. But also just growing up on like the Batman movies, like obviously the Michael Keaton ones. And then just that was kind of my entry point. And gosh, it's funny. It's like I don't exactly know when the idea struck exactly for himbos, but it struck at one point where I was like, and it's not like it's not like the core of it is some sort of, earth-shattering new idea of like the hero falling for the villain and vice versa. Like that's pretty, like that's a trope. But I just loved the idea of, I mean, I read a lot of MM. I actually read mostly contemporary MM, even though I don't write contemporary. I write, paranormal and monster and all that. I like reading contemporary because I can turn my brain off.
Yeah.
That might sound terrible, but it's the relationship is the story in contemporary, and that's all I get to focus on. I don't need to worry about some like world-ending epic plot where people have to like save everything in the nick of time. But yeah, so himbos came to me at one point of just thinking that I would love something that was campy. I do love camp, as it's clear. But I wanted to write MM. I'd already been writing MM within my Why Choose, also known as reverse harem. No, most of us don't use that term anymore.
Yep.
But Why Choose books, I've always had pre-existing and new MM relationships, like within the Why Choose. And that's what people liked about my books, one of the things. And so I was wanting to go into just writing an MM, and I got this wild hair of an idea to do superheroes and villains. And it kind of just went from there. It actually first emerged on Patreon as a serial, as a patron-only serial.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was just a fun thing. It was while I was working on the second book in my Herculeia, Greek Myths and Monsters duet. So this was like last summer, because that's kind of when I started my Patreon. And it was really just for fun. And I think that was the magic of it, because there was no deadline. It wasn't like anyone was expecting anything. I was really just giving them like a chapter or two a week. But the response on Patreon, they were so into it. And I was like, okay. Like, I just didn't, I don't know. I just thought it would be like a fun thing.
Capture
but they
the
were
magic,
like,
baby.
They were like invested. And I definitely don't write slow burn anyway. Like, I don't write slow burn. But this was like, but Himbos was like, but Himbos was definitely the fastest burn that I've ever written, I have to say. And I said, I was just like, they're just going to get into it. We're going to see, dude's going to be jerking off on a mirror in chapter 2. I mean, like, and we're just going to get into it. Like, they're going to go on a date. Because that was kind of the idea of just the hero and a villain matching on a dating app. But as, I guess you'd call them like civilians, but like normies is what they call humans in their world. And so just putting this out as a serial on Patreon, using it, I was actually using it as like a draw to get people to join Patreon. And they were like joining for that. But yeah, the response I got on there was so good that I was like, you know what? I think I actually have something here. So by the time the second Herculeia book came out, I was like, okay. And I just like put this, I was already almost like done with this because it was just flying out of me. And I'm not a particularly fast writer. I edit as I write, which slows things down, but it helps on the back end, whatever. But it was just flying out of me. And that's how every one of these villainous books has been. And they are thick books for me. Like, they're like, 400-page books, which is actually not like my other books, which are more like duets and trilogies. They're more, I would say, like 300 or so. So it's a bit of a difference. But nothing has been as easy for me to write as these books. And I don't know if it's like just because I'm so fucking into them, or while they are paranormal in a sense, the storyline, they're also kind of borderline contemporary. And so again, like I'm not like thinking as hard as I've had to with my like, mythology inspired. I do a lot of like folklore and mythology, like retellings in my other books. And that's a lot of research. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of just like figuring out how things fit. This, it's just like purely making it up as I go along, which is how I write. I saw one of the questions that came in. I don't actually plot or anything.
I was going to, we love to ask if you're a plotter or a pantser. So you're a pantser.
Yeah, I'm a pantser. I feel like there's the in-between word that some people say like a plantser, because while I don't outline or anything like that, I do know like how things are going to end, more or less, although my characters do love to surprise me. So I pretty much know where I'm going. I do get certain scenes in my mind. And when we're saying in our mind, it's not like I'm envisioning them. I'm envisioning the words. Like I have certain, like the words, especially the banter and the dialogue is what always comes to me first. Like that's where I'm thinking. And so I know certain scenes, usually the dialogue, like big moments. And so it almost becomes like stepping stones of me writing to the next stepping stone. Or I know there's certain things, certain big moments that are going to happen, but I just have to like write my way there. It's absolutely fucking terrifying to write this way.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
But I can't outline. I mean, like I've tried kind of like, especially if I'm dealing with some like deep mythology, I can kind of like figure out a few things, but it's just, I'm just like writing and hoping, praying to the gods that I'm gonna like get to an X word count, because now that I've written this, once I wrote Himbos and it was like a thick book for me, I was like, okay, so now every book has to match. And so literally every time I break into a cold sweat thinking I'm not going to reach that, but then I like magically do. It's very terrifying because you're like, it almost feels like I'm not in control, and yet it's still working out. And it's like, there's nothing that can be done about that. So.
Katie and I come from theater backgrounds.
Yes.
And so we understand that sort of like the deadline, you open Friday. That's it. Mm-hmm. and oh my God, we're not going to be ready, and then it always comes together, and it will. It's the stage magic. It's the book magic.
It's a book magic. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about himbos in the Villainous Things series, but you also have the other series, the Herculeia. I just looked at the name of the series and then completely blanked on
12
it.
Hunks of Herculeia.
Well, yeah, the first book is called The 12 Hunks of Herculeia, and then the second book is called Herculeia the Hero. And so it's it's the Herculeia duet, and the book I just released last week is like a spin-off from that. That's Norse mythology. It's called Valhalla is Full of Hunks.
I was just gonna say you have a book called Valhalla is Full of Hunks. I think that's fantastic.
Well, that tracks.
Yes,
that tracks.
Yeah,
Well,
that one. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just the reason I said go ahead and then I started talking.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Like a real dick.
Same. That's what I do.
A couple years ago, I had a chance to interview a woman named Stephanie Cook. Excellent writer, primarily works in comic books, and she was just releasing a graphic novel called Oh My Gods, which was set in a high school for the children of the Greek gods.
I need this immediately.
It's so good.
It sounds right up my alley.
It's so good. They hunt a gorgon and then they make friends with her. It's so good.
Yeah, it's magnificent. But one of the things that we talked about, and I would love to pick your brain on, is what do you think it is about specifically Greek mythology that makes it so enduring? Like people want to keep writing about it. I mean, being in the public domain helps. I'm probably sure a little bit, but also like it's scalable because you could write a book about teenagers, but then you can also write smut.
Yeah. So I think there's well, first of all, I think a lot of authors probably write in it because it's to market, as we would say, because especially I don't necessarily write to market, I would say, but like obviously with the whole Marvel Universe movies and stuff, like it's hot. Like if you write, and like you said, it's public domain. If you go write a book where I guess that's Norse, but if you're writing a book about Loki, or if you're writing Hades, if we're going Greek, like there's so many Hades Persephone retellings, whether or not it's like a very vague retelling, contemporary mafia or something like that. Shit sells. People love broody boy Hades being broody.
Katie Robert.
Oh my God. Yes.
Freaking.
Yes. So I do think there's
made gold in her palms when she wrote her. When she wrote those books,
Neon Gods,
the Neon Gods.
Yep. Oh my God.
I got halfway through Electric Idol and then I stopped reading it, and I don't even know why.
I think I've only done the first book, but I did it on audio, and I was driving and I had to pull over. I was like, I can't handle this. Like it was so intense. Like it was so good, but I was like, I'm gonna get in an accident. But I think that so I think it's really marketable, and there's endless possibilities. Now, what I decided to do with Herculeia, in my wisdom, was that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take the 12 labors of Heracles and just not personify them, monsterify them. I don't know if that's really a word, but
sure it is. Turn
them into monsters. And our girl she gets in a shipwreck, and she, on a cruise ship, and washes ashore and works her way through. It's a slow build. It's a fast burn, but a slow build, meaning that she collects them one by one.
Thank you for clarifying.
Otherwise, that would be a lot. Like, it would be a lot if she had just washed ashore and there were 12 dudes standing there for her. So,
oh my God!
Gotta give her a girl. She's got to limber up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, tell that to some of the other authors whose books we've covered. They're like, Jesus Christ!
I know.
What's the max number of partners you've read into Why Choose? Because mine is 9.
Yeah,
all at once, and I was like, where do all these parts even go?
It's the train. That's when you have to draw the diagram.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got stuck with a thigh pit.
Knee pit?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, when you're a monster too, because the opening scene in the second book of that duet, we have kind of some train action, but at that point I think she only has 6. I think she only starts with 6 in that book, but regardless. But there's tentacles. Like one of them's a kraken.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I kind of cheated. So I kind of cheated because the Kraken is actually Norse mythology, but I cheated and made him responsible for one of the labors. And because I really just wanted tentacles in there. And that's kind of where it ties into then the spin-off being Norse mythology. So lots of liberties are taken when I do these mythology retellings.
Again, I know I made a joke on an episode of the show where I'm like, yeah, the accuracy. That's what I expect from these books because I'm extremely.
It is
autistic,
funny though. You'd be surprised the people in reviews who want to argue. The funny thing is they always seem to have issue with things that actually came from mythology, but they think I made it up, and so then they want to get big mad about shit that I didn't. Because I mean, mythology is so fucking weird. It's actually perfect for me because it's already so weird. I mean, everybody's fucking everybody. Everyone's related.
People are birthed out of heads.
They're all exactly. Like Loki, literally turned into a female horse and then gave birth to an 8-legged horse that then Odin rode. I mean, the shit I didn't make that up.
But this is where you draw the line.
Right, exactly.
Strange.
Like you're mad about this random thing that if you just Googled, you would find out that it existed. But yeah, so I did. Herculeia was Greek mythology and the spin-offs Norse. But before that, I did a Slavic mythology, Baba Yaga.
Yes.
My Yaga's Riders series, which again, nobody's doing Slavic mythology, nobody's doing Baba Yaga smut, but it took off. So I mean, I guess. Well, it was the cover. I have to say, because I design my own covers, and I'm not even just tooting my own horn. That cover of the first book is what really
striking.
That was the turning point. I was like, okay.
I see that cover on my TikTok all the time because you're constantly.
Yeah.
You have the best posting schedule. I have no idea how you put so much content out. But
I don't know. I don't write as much as I should. I mean, that's really it. I should be writing more, but I understand how the algorithm works, so I'm on it.
You mentioned a couple things like people reaching out and taking umbrage with certain things, and that leads me to a question.
A lot of umbrage.
So much umbrage.
So much umbrage.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Isn't it? I'm showing him the cover of Rise of the Witch.
Oh my
God! Look
God,
at that! It's so striking.
The shadow and the
man.
it's just that's fantastic work.
And so, judging a book by its cover, people definitely were like, "Oh, hello," because my series before that, I didn't market it well. I can say that right now, and that was like Angels and Demons and Blasphemy and stuff, but hot blasphemy, But
some of my favorite stuff.
Yeah, But Rise of the Witch, as soon as I dropped that cover, people took notice, and it's kind of been my little smut engine that could uphill climb since then.
It's very reminiscent of the Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice game cover to me.
Oh yeah,
which,
that's.
I mean, you can't
I don't
see
know
that,
what that is, but I love
it. No, it's a compliment. It's great.
It's a video game, but it takes Viking origins, Norse origins,
Viking origins, yeah.
And the woman on the cover has her face half painted blue with that really intense expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question that I had for you, and it's something that Katie and I talk about, which is, we talk about the autonomy of art. Like once you put it in the world, there's no controlling how people respond and react to it. Have you found that to be like something that has pleasantly surprised you more often than not, in terms of like, oh wow, I didn't like you mentioned you put the Villainous Things series on Patreon, and it just blew up, and you were just kind of throwing it out there. Have you been surprised by a particular book or piece that just took off and you had no idea?
Well, I'm honestly very surprised with how eloquently people review my books sometimes, because I swear to God, I'm like, wow, can you just explain my book to everyone? because like just the way and the things that they pick up on in reviews, like the nuances, and that once they say it, especially with like the nuances in either relationship or character development, is once I see it written in front of me in someone's review, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to do. I'm glad that I did that, but it's just funny because like I wouldn't have been able to articulate that necessarily, and yet somehow, like in the way they did, but yet somehow I managed to get it across for them to then articulate in a review. So that is constantly mind-boggling to me, and again is slightly terrifying because I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm managing to do that. But however, so I do love that, but I don't know if that necessarily answers the question.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, it's just I've always been fascinated ever since one of the early Evening with Kevin Smith. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, and he talks a lot about how when he wrote Clerks, he had zero idea that Jay and Silent Bob was going to be his legacy.
I used to love that movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jay and
right?
Silent Bob were amazing.
But that's what people latched onto. He was just
Right.
trying to write a movie about his day job, and now he's Silent Bob for the rest of his fucking life.
Yeah.
And so it's just fascinating to see, like, when you put something into the world, and that's why I always say the bravest thing you can do is create something and put it
Yeah.
into the world, because there's no way to gauge how it's going to be responded to.
It's true. And so back to himbos, because I know that you guys probably really want to talk about it, which is totally fine, because I am.
No, we want to talk to you.
No, I know, but I'm saying that now that Valhalla's out in the world, I am diving back into villainous things. I've been dying to get back into it. So I definitely want to talk about it. But yeah, so that it was so well received on Patreon, I thought it was just like a goofy idea that I was just having a blast writing. It was just filthy smart with hot men in tight super suits. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally what I was trying to do. And so I actually wasn't necessarily even thinking it was going to be a series. And I keep teasing whoever. I never know which one of you I'm talking to on Instagram, which was funny.
I'm on Instagram. She's on TikTok.
But I never, like, I know that you haven't read book 2 yet,
Correct.
Gentlemen Prefer Villains. And there's a major plot twist that starts in that book that I'm going to do my best not to.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
You can't do
not
this to me.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is that when I wrote himbos, I mean, it kind of ties itself up. It could just be a standalone by itself. And that's actually how I wrote it. And I actually then, once I realized people wanted more, I was like, oh, I could continue to do a series where it's like Butch and Xander. But my early readers, my alpha readers, who are like in the doc when I'm writing, and then they're also like part of my advanced reader copy team, ARC team, they were like, no, you're writing about Wolfie next. Like, clearly that's what we want. And I was like, oh. And I thought he was so, and like, I just wrote him to be like creepy older brother, but they're like, no, we demand Wolfie. Like, we are going to hunt you down and riot if you don't give us this man and his story. And I was like, oh. But then I also was thinking from a business perspective, smart marketing, that's a big thing in is to do these interconnected standalones where it's a different couple in each series. And sometimes you don't have the overarching storyline like the way I have done. And that's actually better, because then people can kind of, not better, but it's easier for people to jump in wherever. In this case, I'm like, sorry, you really need to start at the first book.
Yeah.
And you have to read through the books, because there's like, it's an overarching storyline. And I think that's just from my days of like writing trilogies and duets and such. But I do tell people, like, you get your HEA in each book with each couple, or thruple in the case with the twins, which is what we're going to get next. Yes. So.
Excellent.
I'm very surprised to hear that you didn't intend on this being an interconnected world, because I thought that was always the intention, because the Suarezes are the perfect family to interconnect a world like this.
But I really just was writing them as a ridiculous, like, I love hate family dynamics, and I was just writing them as complete. Like, you'll see once you get into book 2, you'll start to see more of like the group chat. Like, Xander just kind of mentions the group chat like it's an annoyance to him, because of course he's forced to be in it, like they're all in it. But you'll actually see the group chat has now become its own thing, where people just like demand, like, there's an additional, even book 3, there's an additional bonus chapter of just group chat, because people just love the group chat.
Oh my God, they
just
so
roast
much.
each other. They're just, it's like, you have to, like, only the strong survive. People try to leave the group chat and people add them back in. They're like, I can't. And you'll find in Wolfie's book, it's not a spoiler, but that it's called the Rabble. Like, that's the name of the group chat in Wolfie's phone. And so they all have like ridiculous names in it for each other. It's just the group chat.
I can't wait. I'm not doing Gentlemen Prefer Villains until January.
Oh my God. Well,
what?
I'm sorry.
I might have to reevaluate, because I was going to do the holidays and everything. Like, I have plans, and I was going to get back into it in January, but maybe I'm going to have to do it in November.
I mean, you could always read it in the background.
I do need to.
You need to, because I loved your recap. I was howling. It's hard for me to listen to anything with like words usually when I'm like writing or doing anything like that.
Course.
But I was actually working on the Valhalla paperback cover. And so that's really, graphic design is just mindless for me. Like, I can do it with my eyes closed. And so I was listening to it while I was designing that, and I was dying. And that's when I posted. I'm like, everyone, you need to listen to this. Like, it's the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Oh my
because
God,
it was
cry.
just
I'm so happy.
It was just so hilarious to listen. Because also, I mean, you got to understand, I wrote this like originally like a year and something ago at this point. So and people are still reading it and reviewing it online, and I always get a thrill when I see like someone just getting into the series now and their review, and it brings it back. But to like listen to a recap of the entire book, I was like, this is wild. And I actually sent it to my husband because I was like, whose name is actually Butch. That's
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and so his personality is not Butch at all. At all. He's probably more Xander, but like the name Butch was just too perfect for a hero named Captain Masculine.
Oh, are you kidding me?
So so all my readers know him as real life Butch. That's what he's called to them. But he's never read my books, and it's not really like his. The man reads like Hemingway. Like, I mean, he's not reading this.
Carl's over here reading, nonfiction about baseball, and every week I'm like, babe, I need to tell you a story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's obviously the genesis of the podcast, but
yeah. And so, so I actually sent him your podcast. I have to see if he actually listened to it. I meant to ask him before because I was like, listen, I'm like, they do kind of talk about the smut a little, which it's not going to bother him. It's just not what he's interested in,
Right.
But I was like, but she's mostly like talking about the story, and I was so tickled because the three of you like really enjoyed the plot, and that means a lot, especially coming from like comic book people because that's the kind of plot it is, and I just like, so I just was so like flattered that you guys actually liked it, that I was like, oh god.
The turn in Act 3 when I told them that Vortexio had killed Smoldering Sirens and Ventus, they were like, no.
The reactions were so good. I was like,
so into this story.
That motherfucker.
Right.
God damn it.
Speaking of, we intended for this to go about an hour, and we've been going at it for just under 40 minutes. But you put out a call. We put out a call for questions from your readers.
A last minute call on my part,
and they came out hard. So I want to preemptively apologize to everybody whose questions we don't get to, because you guys went so hard. But I would like to start knocking out some of these reader questions. And you said something about tentacles.
Oh, there's tentacles, and there's a tentapene. I mean, I'm not sure if people
hell
talk about that, but, I mean.
Well then, reader Melissa sent in a lot of great questions, but I wanted to hone in on this question, which was, how do you plot and plan the sex scenes so that the, quote, sexual physics, close quote, aka where the limbs are, makes sense?
Just a lot. I mean, this isn't a very exciting answer, but it's really just a lot of thought. Like, I don't like, I know some authors will literally like pose Barbies and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, literally will pose things or draw it out or whatever. Like, I literally just, like I was mentioning, I edit as I go. So I'm really writing with a critical eye. Like, I know some authors will just write. They just like free write, and they're not worried about mistakes and all that. That's not how I do it. Like, I'm literally thinking about every sentence, probably way more than I should. And it's just the methodical way that I write. And so if I'm in the middle of a sex scenes are actually harder for me to write. No pun intended. But like, they're actually harder for me to write than anything else. And it's more just to make sure that they're unique, because there's really only so many things you can do. And it helps when you're dealing with like, paranormal beings or monsters who have really fancy equipment. That adds a little, extra variety to it. But it's more just making sure that it's going to like satisfy people. Because, man, I tell you, especially like the dark romance hoes, like they have some high expectations, and they like to read my books as like palate cleansers. Like, I know that for a fact. Like, I'm like just dark enough for them, and they love the dark humor. They won't go any lighter than me. So like, I still have to keep them, like, I get usually like four chili peppers on their spice scales, because like, Lord knows the things that they read, it's like I'm not even coming close. But for the other people, I'm like 5+.
We can't all be like the sacrifice.
No.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
Shit.
it's just nuts. But yeah, just a lot of thought, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because you read that one scene from Not All Himbos where Butch just like literally like beats the guy into like a snot ball.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Red Renegade. He just beats him to a pulp.
And I was like, that's fucking metal.
Yeah.
But then the idea that there's people out there reading your books going,
I know. I'm sure it wasn't violent enough. I know, because when you were doing the recap, I'm like, wow, there was a lot of violence in that book. Like,
Yeah. And they loved it. You guys loved it.
and that's the thing. I'm not normally like I'm not a typical like quote. I guess I don't say typical, but like I'm not like super into like ultra violence. You know, which is a characteristically male thing more often than not.
Yeah.
But when it's executed with an artistic flourish, or like he did it like right in front of Xander.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was
and that was actually a scene. That scene where where Zanny's in his therapist's office.
Yep.
And watching, Captain Masculine beat the shit out of, a villain, like, and then them seeing each other, like, that's the kind of thing. And that's why I don't always know if I have like full blown aphantasia, because I can definitely like just see that scene of like them standing on either side of the glass. But it was more that I was really just like thinking about the emotion of that scene, because, okay, one of the hardest things with himbos was keeping track of who knew what, because the reader knows from almost page 1 who they are. Like the identities are not secret to the reader at all. Like the reader, this is not a surprise to the reader. However, they meet as normies, and one of them finds out before the other who they are, but at the same time, in that particular scene that we're talking about, Xander is, plainclothes normie looking at Captain Masculine. And so obviously Butch, Captain Masculine, knows who he's looking at, but Xander doesn't know who he's looking at.
Yeah.
So just trying to keep that straight so that I wouldn't make a mistake. And like, because the reader, of course, is like, you idiots. Like, why? Like, how do you not fucking realize that these people, but like, they just don't know.
That's you guys are dummies.
Yeah, they're big dummies. I mean, that's the
they're
truth.
big dumb babies, and I love them.
Yeah.
To clarify a question you had on that episode, their masks, are they like Deadpool style, like cover your whole head?
For the most part, I'd say they're more Captain America style.
Oh, okay.
Where it's
Good.
like,
okay.
So yeah, I said that in a couple places because I was like, they can't just have like, they can't
domino
just have
masks,
that.
yeah.
They can't have that. So it's really like, but I did want their mouths to show for the most part, because Butch is always like smiling for the camera because he's like the
more like
golden
a
boy.
Batman cowl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like the top, like the nose up is like covered.
Okay.
It's still pretty funny that people wouldn't know who someone is. But
I
like,
mean,
whatever.
I feel like if you've stuck your dick in this guy's mouth that many times, you should recognize the
know
mouth.
what
At least the
mouth
mouth, yeah.
I know. No.
I would
No.
memorize that.
No.
And that just shows you exactly, like, Xander just doesn't look at
Yeah.
Butch and
Just not-
see Captain Masculine, so he
No.
just doesn't know.
That's fair.
No.
No, I mean, I've said it before when I was in the
It's so
Army.
funny.
The first time you see somebody that you see every day in uniform in
Yeah.
civilian clothes, you'll walk right past them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's just
that's
weird.
with exposed faces.
Yeah.
So I get it. A couple of readers asked a very similar question. So Shauna and Lily would like to know any genres or tropes that you haven't written in that you would like to take for a spin and actually write about or write something on.
Oh, gosh, that's a tricky question, because a lot of the time, these unruly fucking characters are the ones who decide.
Yes.
Like, because like right now, like I've actually already started writing the twins book. I made sure to start it before my last release, because that way you're not just like in this. It's a real come down after a release, and so it's like already giving me something to like live for. You know what I mean, in a sense. So, but I'm still in the early chapters where I'm still figuring out personalities and what are they into. I do figure out kinks pretty early on, because I have like spice in mind. But in terms of like the tropes, like that kind of has to reveal itself to me. So I don't necessarily plan on that kind of thing. But as I'm writing, I see chances to put in certain tropes. Like, this isn't really a spoiler, but in Gentlemen Prefer Villains, there's an only one bed trope.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was a perfect opportunity to put that in, and that's just like one of my favorite guilty pleasure tropes, because it's amazing. And so it's kind of like that. Like, as I'm writing, I'm like, ooh, this would be the perfect place to put in fill in the blank. So I don't know if there's necessarily something that is like a goals trope. I'm actually going to think about that one, because I should probably like have a plan for that. Because again, that's like a writing to market thing, like certain tropes. That's what sells. After I'm done a book is when or as I'm going is when I figure out what tropes are in there, and that is what I market.
Yeah.
So even if I have a crazy, like Baba Yaga smut that just by itself you're like, what? Like found family is one that that I constantly have in, you know what I mean? There's just different tropes that
Found family is having like a big moment right now.
I love
too.
found family. It's like
it's so
I
good.
think every one of my books probably has that, because it's like one of my favorites. So
Do you, like sometimes actors, there's a trope where it says like, I'll do one for them and then I'll do one for me. So like they'll do the big budget flick and then they'll do the indie flick. Do you find yourself doing that when you write? Like, do you ever write to market for something, but then maybe come back to the thing that's yours?
No, I pretty much just do whatever I want.
Right.
Which is it's not necessarily the best business strategy, because I do think that if I was more strategically writing to market, or even like writing more in contemporary, which is it's just easier to sell, I'd probably be doing better. But I just like writing what I like. And I do make sure, though, there's a great book, like writing craft book called, it's all about universal fantasies, and like I'm blanking on the actual title of it, but it's essentially like you think about like billionaire romances, like the universal fantasy of that is that this, you know, handsome man with shit ton of money just like takes you out of your shitty ass life.
Man, I wish.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, hello.
Even I would
like,
do that.
Right? Right? So
For $1 billion, would you? Yes.
Yes.
I would
it's
anything.
a forced marriage. Oh no.
Oh,
you know,
no.
and so yeah, exactly. So but that's like universal fantasy. You know what I mean? And that's so I do make sure that I'm like writing to market in that sense, that I'm not just going like so off the wall that it's too niche or that no one is going to be interested in it. Like I still managed to get my really fucking weird shit in there, but then I have like the little things that people love, and that's what I market along with the spice. And then the plot is actually a pleasant surprise for people. No, it's true.
No,
it's
absolutely.
True.
No, and that's
Like-
that's why we're having so much fun listening to you, because you're so dang refreshing. Like we love unabashed honesty.
Yes.
Yes.
So
that is what you get with me.
good.
So,
Keep that energy.
Yeah.
Emily would like to know if you've thought about doing a crossover with any of your series that are completed into current ones or future series, and not like interconnected standalones.
Do you think they mean like two total, like my existing series, like characters from those?
That's how I
series
read it.
meeting?
Yeah, that's to me that sounds like she's asking like, would Herculeia and her hunks ever meet the Suarezes and
God.
Zanny?
I feel like
Like-
there'd be no survivors.
Right?
Who would win, Captain Masculine or Hercules?
I know. Yeah. I mean, I just.
Or Hercules, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Captain
Yeah.
Masculine fights the Kraken.
Yeah.
Woo!
And then
I know.
fucks it into submission.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, they're all pretty much. There's rarely a straight man. I mean, I have had a couple. I've had a couple guys in the groups who just like don't cross swords, but it's never like they're fine with the action. You know what I mean? It's just the character itself decides that. But no, it's fun. Oh, crack ships. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Crack ships is when you take like total like AU characters from different, you know.
Oh yes.
Series,
Yeah.
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 But I feel
It's a
like that might be
fanfic term, yeah.
more like that might be more like fan fiction. Spice.
That is. Yeah.
I don't know. I would have that's the kind of thing where I'd probably have my Patreon vote on it. Just ask like, who do you want to see bang? And just, I mean, because there could definitely be some interesting pairings or group scenes with different people. But yeah, but that's another thing. It would have to like, because people get really, as you know, with comics too, people get really protective of canon. And so
Yeah.
like it would have to be clear, like this is Patreon only. It's AU. It's nothing to do with the timeline of either series. But yeah, I think I would let the fans tell me what they wanted there, and then just have some fun with it.
That's amazing. Well, Neil Gaiman very recently proved the AU. If you were the original author, the AU is whatever you want it to be.
Well, that's true. Also, yeah, that's true.
And I was going to, I mean, there's always like, I mean, you mentioned earlier the Dark Knight Returns. DC Comics has always been great at what they would call like their Elseworlds, like taking those characters and putting them in other worlds, like Superman Red Sun. What if he landed in Russia instead of America?
Yeah, that's true. Your next book is going to be a multiverse book. You could get real weird with it.
That's what I'm saying.
I know. I do actually already have. I'm trying to be very careful of what I say to you two because you haven't gone through already. You don't know.
Well,
you don't know the ground shaking
I appreciate
truth about Soups, but
the ground shaking truth about Soups.
That's what
Dear
I mean.
Lord.
Dear Lord, what could it be? But like, I know, and the people who are going to listen to this are like, oh my God, we know. But
yeah, they all have a secret on me.
Yeah, I know. But I'm already scheming on multiple spin-off series because again, it's mostly because it's what I want to fucking do. But at the same time, I also look at as a genre that, you know, making money. And a lot of authors will do this. They'll have like their series in a universe, and then they do these spin-off series. And that way, however a reader enters your universe in this series or the next one that comes out, then they'll have like another series to go into. It's the same universe. You might have little cameos because they love that.
Yep.
And so I have no plans to leave this universe anytime
in sci-fi
soon.
romance a lot too.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so I have no plans to leave this universe anytime soon. I already have at least 3 spin-offs planned, and I don't want to go too into them just because it's with characters that we meet in the second and third book. But you know, we're going to be going places, both you know, here and beyond.
Excellent. Well,
that's what you get.
That ties into a great question. You got some questions from Josh, right? Did he text?
Oh
them
yeah,
to you?
let's not forget Josh.
Yeah.
Josh,
Okay, well,
Josh was such an important part of this episode.
Oh my God, yes.
Josh
well, I wanted to ask this question because it ties into what you just said, but then I want to get some questions in from Josh, and that was a question from Summer, which is how many total characters do you have floating around in your head? So when you're juggling all of this.
Such a scary place. People are like, I would love to spend a day in your brain. I'm like, no, bitch, you would not. You would absolutely not.
Careful what you wish for.
It is so jumbled in there. And I was already kind of a space case before this writing thing took off. But man, it is hard to concentrate when you have literal voices in your head, like dialogue, you know, testing out dialogue.
That's why I listen to podcasts all day.
Yeah.
Keep the voices in the head.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
low.
I need, they're just there. They're just chattering at me for existing series, for these spin-offs, for other, a Monsterverse that I was supposed to launch this year, but then Gay Soups took over. So that's, you know, going to launch next year, you know, God's willing. But yeah, I mean, I have like my whiteboard calendar poster over here, and it's like, I have like a long list of like future ideas. And it's just like random shit of just like, I'll have to eventually get to. But I try not to let them talk too loudly because I really like right now the character who's going to kick off the first spin-off series of Villainous, we meet him in book 3 and he is already speaking quite loudly. So what I might actually end up doing is write that book simultaneously with the twins book, but only like no pre-order, nothing, just share it with Patreon and they can just get some, because they already know that I'm planning this. And that way I can just kind of keep it going again with that like low pressure joy that I had when I was originally writing himbos of just doing it for funsies. You know what I mean? Even though like I know at this time that it's going to, you know, end up being a book for sale, but I think that's what I'm probably going to do just to shut him up and get him out of my head because he's already coming at me and I have 2 more Villainous books to write. I mean, the storyline, the overarching storyline is going to be wrapped up in book 4 in the twins book, but I'm already planning on it's because I was guessing that people were going to ask me for it already and no one's going to say no to it. I'm planning on the 5th book, which is just going to be like the reunion book. With all of them, with POVs. It's going to be Butch and Xander's wedding, finally. Because they've just been planning it for, like, you know, some glorious thing.
I love those.
Yeah.
Like, it's
that's
like,
what I
mean. If you watch any anime, it's like at the end of the season of anime, they just do like a recap episode.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite. You're like, oh, look at all these great moments and all these people I love, and we're going to do a little thing where we all go to the beach, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just preemptively assumed that people were going to demand more, and this way it's like a 5th book, this random loose loose thread, not really even, but like that Xander and Butch haven't gotten married yet is the perfect kind of, destination wedding somewhere. I haven't quite decided. And then they're all there. You get POVs from everyone. There'll also be another romance kind of side plot, but just chaos, lots of group chat because people can't get enough of the group chat, that kind of thing.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
And don't feel like, and like I can talk a little longer than, I know that you guys have other things too, but don't feel like you're keeping me if you want to keep asking questions.
Oh, no.
It's up to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I do have, so we kind of answered one question, which is, are there any real life comic influences besides the obvious archetypes? So you did mention the classic Batman, the Frank Miller Batman. He says, I'm not sure if she's ever read it, but it kind of gave the vibe of the comic Invincible or The Boys.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, The Boys, definitely. Okay, so, well, first of all, I'm also going to say Deadpool is a huge influence because of the humor. Like, I couldn't breathe watching Deadpool movies. And because I'm the horrible one who's a lot of my more recent comic book knowledge is from movies, which is I know a big no for some people, but
don't worry about it.
That's just how I digest them. But oh my god, Deadpool's humor fucking slays me, and that's the humor that I was going for, or at least trying to go for. And so, but then The Boys is interesting because it was one of those things that once I got this idea and I'd been eyeing The Boys, I didn't actually want to watch The Boys until I figured out my own plot line. So it wasn't until I was really deep into the second book, Gentlemen Prefer Villains, Wolfie's book, that I was okay. And I finally was I watched season 1 of The Boys. I just didn't want to well, I actually ended up watching it because I was okay, I probably should watch it to make sure I'm not too close to what The Boys storyline is at this point. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to be overly influenced by it, but I also didn't want to look like I was just pulling from The Boys. But that's that kind of just what the fuckery that I go for, of just weird dark shit happening.
Yeah.
So that's the vibe there. But then also some Sin City. Because that kind of noir. I wouldn't say that I'm going noir, but it's that kind of just gritty reality vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess
it doesn't have
a little pulpy.
Yeah.
Pulpy,
it doesn't have that raining in a back alley noir vibe, but I understand what you're saying. And I do love The Boys, or I much prefer the Villainous Things series. I didn't really like The Boys that much. Yeah. I love the idea of reinterpreting the superhero through the modern political lens and what that would mean because we live in late stage capitalism.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so brilliant. I loved the way you did it with the Biggses, and I thought that was really very entertaining.
Well, right. It's that the soups are a commodity.
Yes, exactly.
So
nothing about that. You've got these. The one thing that I do think is always funny in stories like that is you've got these people who could kill you. Yeah. And they're being controlled by these guys with deep pockets.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say, that's how powerful money is.
Well, it is, but I'm gonna tease you again and make you read it, but you're gonna find out in book 2, because that's the big question. And I'm sure I try not to read too many reviews because people get mean, but I'm sure that's a big question of okay, so even if someone's pockets are really deep, let's be real, the soups could just have an uprising, and just fucking flatten these normies into bloody pulp. It wouldn't be that hard, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And obviously in book 1 we find out how the those with the deep pockets forced the divide between heroes and villains that obviously stopped them from joining forces. But even then, just the villains or the heroes probably could have taken out the normies, but why didn't they? And so you'll find out in book 2 that there's more there's more leverage than just money. Yeah.
Interesting. I figured there would be more to it, that you would continue down the rabbit hole of
because it's a really good question. You're
what it means to own a superhero, basically. Yeah. Or an entire industry of superheroes. And I look forward to it. I really do. Josh's last question is, have you gotten any other feedback from other horny nerds?
Well, I do get a thrill when I see a review, especially on Instagram, where it's someone who, you know, is posing and they're wearing their like Marvel shirt or something, and they're just like, oh, I've always loved, you know, fill in the blank, whoever their favorite, you know, superheroes or villains are or whatever. And this is so great. Like I said, I really breathe a sigh of relief when the actual like comic nerds like my book, because there was the potential for it to go like, you know, the opposite of like hating on it.
Yeah.
And I was mentally preparing for that, because, you know, I understand how, like any community, I understand how that can go.
I think
but I've
you
been
have
very
this
pleasantly surprised.
slightly added benefit of most of the really mean comic book nerds are dudes who wouldn't read smut.
No,
They'd
no,
just be
and,
like,
and
that's
luckily,
not for me. That's chick shit or whatever.
And luckily, the algorithm has not brought me to their doorstep.
Oh yeah,
because that always happens too. When you get a
Yeah.
viral video somewhere, it's like, damn it, because then of course the algorithm doesn't know who to show it to, and you end up with all the people who should not be seeing your content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not great. You don't want that.
No.
One last question from a reader, and they it's from Instagram user That Book Lady.
Okay.
They kind of asked 3 questions in one, so I'm
Sure.
going to condense for clarity, which is your 2 series that I would say primarily known for: superheroes, Greek mythology.
Yep.
Which one would you prefer? Like, if you had to, like, you know, fall on one side, like in you know.
That's just mean to ask.
it is. It's like asking you to pick your favorite
Well,
kid or
hard.
something.
Well, here, let me ask the question as written.
Okay.
Why superheroes? Why mythological characters? And which is your favorite? That's how the question is written, but it's technically 3 questions.
Yeah. It's hard. I do feel like whoever I'm currently writing is my favorite, and this goes for like books as a whole with like the cast of characters, but also depending whose like POV I'm in a certain chapter is like who's my favorite at that moment, usually, even when they're making me angry. So obviously I just left the world of, you know, Norse mythology with Valhalla is full of hunks, and so they're still having a bit of a soft spot for me, because it literally just released last week, and I wrote that book in like a month, which is unheard of. Granted, it's not as thick as my villainous series, but I really think that this is no surprise to like my readers, but my heart is just really in Like I've always enjoyed writing Why Choose and polyamorous pairings. Like I'm part of an anthology that's coming out next month that's it's a monster anthology called Creepy Court. It's set in a monster mall.
Yep,
and
saw
it's
that on
like
Instagram.
1980s. For that, I'm finally doing vampires. Vampires are just one of my favorites, and I've never had a chance to write them, but that one's an MMF, so that's a menage. So I like these different pairings, and I love exploring the different creatures or like mythologies associated with them, and that's all fun and, you know, fine and good. But like, I just really love writing and I'm just having so much freaking fun with the Villainous Things series, again, because it's low lift on my brain. That's helpful, but at the same time, like, I just like love these characters. I love the potential. Like, we're talking about the spin-off series, like you know, it's literally a multiverse. Like, I can never leave this universe or multiverse. You know what I mean? I can like go in all these different directions, have it all be related, have randomest cameos.
Absolutely.
Keep people coming back. Like, there's really no end to this.
Pull a Ruby Dixon and write
That's
72 alien
Oh
books.
my God. I know, for real.
How did that bitch write 72 books? I still don't know.
I'm telling you, it's on the bookshelves in like regular bookstores. So good for her. Like,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Did you do? I'm glad you mentioned Creepy Court, because I really I
did not do that cover. Is that what you're gonna ask?
I was gonna ask about the VHS and the cassette.
No.
Oh,
no.
'cause
I know, it's amazing.
So great.
A lot of the graphics. I'm feeling awful that I'm totally blanking on the illustrator, Kira something. I want to give her a shout out, but us smut authors love our illustrators.
Yes.
We are so, and that's why we're all like anti-AI and everything. Like, we're just like we
There's
we
so
like
many
covered
reasons to
them.
be
We covered
anti-AI.
them like dragons and their jewels. Like, they're just like. I mean, we share them now. Like, we're constantly like wrecking them and everything. But we love our illustrators and what they can bring to life for us. So let me
Take your time. If you
Yeah,
need to pause,
I
you can, because we
really-
can always edit. But if you find it quick,
I know,
Great.
I'm hoping. I
Just
know.
ask
If
Carl
I
at
can always send it to you after too, of like show notes type stuff.
Nope, take your
I
time.
want to say Kira Knight.
Kira Knight.
Yeah, Kira Knight. Just with
There
an
you
N.
go.
Yeah, she did Creepy Court. She's done other book covers for a lot of monster romance uses illustrated covers. That's like my Herculeia duet. When I did the omnibus, I used Mon Reyes, who's done character art for Herculeia before. He's an amazing artist too. And then my illustrator, I have to give a shout out to my illustrator for Himbos, is Biggs Boy. But anyway, Kira Knight did the Creepy Court cover. She's also done covers for like Cleo Evans and Beatrix Hollow. Beatrix Hollow, who is another monster and PNR author who's actually venturing into like slasher contemporary, because that's really her vibe. She's kind of on the edge of like horror. You just got my accent there, horror.
No, it's okay. I like I said, I lived out there for a while. I understand it. It's fine. And it's really weird. It's not in Boston. You don't hear the accent. It's outside of Boston. You hear it in New Hampshire.
Well, it's funny. I was actually at a book signing all weekend in the Salem area, and so readers were meeting me for the first time and like all over me. It was great. It was very exhausting, but it was awesome. People were like, "Your accent." I'm like, "I don't know what you mean." Like I don't really hear it, but I know it's certain
getting
words.
witchy with it. Was that when that?
It was getting witchy. It was insane.
Getting witchy and then Sinful Signings both happened this past weekend.
That was a little unfortunate because people did have to choose. But Getting Witchy
and
was
that's
really
why
fun.
you have to choose.
You have to choose. I know. No, Getting Witchy was really fun, and it was really awesome to meet readers in person and to meet my author friends for like the first time. Like these are people that I talk to more than my family, and like,
oh wow,
they're just like online friends. So that was really fun too.
We've talked about it. That's something that we're eyeing for next year. Is we would like to like table at a a smut con.
Yeah.
So we'll be putting the feelers out on that. See, Rochelle, this has been you could not have been a better first author for our author profiles. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for joining us, but thank you so much for the kind words about the episode. I mean,
it was great.
It's always weird for us. Like early on in the show, we didn't tag the authors because we were like, what if we make an author mad?
No, we love it. Unless you're being like super critical and mean, which you guys aren't.
Which we don't do that.
Yeah, like I think most authors will love it.
We sometimes are.
Well, we get catty.
We do.
I think,
but we get catty as if, hey, speaking of, but we get catty.
See, I love that. That's my love language, is being roasted. So like that's why I loved it, because I just was like everything that you guys loved and also like poked loving fun at, like I love it. I eat it up.
Good. We always try to treat it as though we are like, if we're being critical the character.
Yeah.
And the actual choice the character's making.
You're making dumb choices.
Yeah, because
writer.
like I literally am writing himbos. Like they're dumb.
Yeah.
They're dumb.
They're very dumb.
They're big, dumb, hot idiots. Like that's it.
Bless
Bless
them.
them.
Absolutely love them. But I do love, like, that's when we started working on this show, or conceiving of this show, I was like, how much do you think I can take the piss out of these books? Because I love them. I love every single one I've ever read. I have loved, but some of them I'm like, this is some bullshit. A little bit. I'm gonna take the piss.
I can't speak for every author, because obviously some get, a little more like precious over their stuff. But I do have to say that, and that's another thing that always cracks me up with reviews and such, is when readers get so fucking mad at a character, and I'm like, trust me, I am mad at him too. Like, he tried me, like, it's just like they think that we are not aware that we wrote a frustrating character sometimes, and we're like, no, they were frustrating, and that's just who they were, and they had a lot of growth to do. Because for example, like, and I know that you guys are trying to wrap up, but like,
You're fine.
I don't write bully, and I don't really read bully romance either, and totally no shade to anyone who likes it. It's just not my thing. It makes me like meh. But I do like enemies to lovers, and I do like to throw in, like with my my Why Choose, I throw in the guy who's the enemies to lovers, and he's salty, and he's not particularly nice to the heroine, and blah blah blah, and it takes a while to come around. He's just a fucking asshole. Like, that's the type of man that I would be like, go fuck yourself. Like, please, in real life. Like, it wouldn't matter how much groveling, like, he'd be done. He'd be done before like the first time he opened his mouth. But
an elbow from the top row.
And so my readers, but I have certain readers, they love that kind of character, and so I write him for them. I despise them. I do not like them But like, I mean, I like them by the end because, you know, they've come a long way. But like, it's just funny to me because like when I see reviews about how much they disliked X character, I'm like, girl, same. Like, you know what I mean? But I have the usually dark romance hoes who are like licking and claiming, and they're like, he's mine. And I'm like, you can fucking have him. Like, you can have him. Like,
come get your man.
Come get him. But you're talking about him, and I hate to do this to you because I know you're trying to hold off and read other books, but wait until you get to book 3, because
girl, I have been eyeing book 3 because
Baltazar Suarez is the himbo.
All I know is what you have said. Baltazar is king of the himbos. He wears a tutu.
Yeah, he has a tutu. Yeah, there's a whole tutu fetish thing.
And there's a lizard cock. And
yeah, I ventured into I brought my monster romance in with the soups for that one. Well, because Zion, the other guy who's in a hero family, his soup form is like Godzilla. Like, he's like this.
Oh hell yeah!
Crazy, like,
now you're
lizard.
talking my language.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Baltazar, you call him Baby Hulk, right?
Well, you'll see. That's what Simon in book 2 decides to call him. Our Mafia Queen, who you have not met, our Mafia Queen yet.
I haven't met the Queen yet. I haven't met him. He
is a divisive character, let me tell you. I love him, but man, people either bow to him or they're like, he thought everything was about him. I'm like, well, yes, he does. Everything is about him. Like, it's his way, or
because he's a queen.
He's the queen.
He's the queen.
Yeah, he's the queen.
I've been picking up a bit here and there because I'm still all over your social media.
How do you not have get spoilers with my posts?
I
try not to be too
but
spoilery.
I'm not. Yeah. I am not the kind of person who cares deeply about spoilers.
Okay.
Even in like some of the television media I consume, like Doctor Who is my nearest and dearest, and Good Omens recently came out. That's a big one for me too. Mm-hmm. I don't care. I'll be on the internet like, I am 4 episodes behind and this happens.
Oh, okay.
But I'm still going to experience it and feel it for myself when it happens.
Yeah.
You can't really ruin it for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I just cannot wait for your recaps.
I know that there's like tutus and lizard dicks and a queen.
That one gets
a pair
wild.
of leather
I feel
gloves.
like that's the leather is a big part in book 2.
I'm very excited.
The hand of death wears leather gloves.
It is the coolest fucking name.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
I'm just having a great time, but we should wrap this up. Yeah. So, assuming that anybody's listening to this episode and doesn't know where to find you on social media, where can they find you?
Well, I'm definitely on Instagram, TikTok. I actually have 2 TikTok accounts. I'm like all over the place. Facebook, my Facebook reader group. I do have a page, but like, what do people do with Facebook pages? My reader group is called C. Rochelle's Weird Ho Sinners. That's a long story. It was Sinners, and then I wanted to change it to Weird Hoes, but then the OGs rioted, and so we combined it. But yeah, so Instagram, it's like, should I say my handle? Like, is that what we're doing? It's c.rochelle_author. That's probably, but I mean, you'll find me. You'll see my face.
Yeah.
Literally, my face is everywhere.
I'll put the links in the show notes. Yeah. That's no problem at all. C. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us on the first author's profile on Cheap Smut. You want to stick around and hear Katie say her signature catchphrase?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, listener, I hope you have enjoyed our interview, and I hope that we get to do so many more of these because I have had the best time. I haven't talked as much as usual because I've been sitting over here going, oh my God. I'm serious. Every author is like a celebrity to me. Every single one. So talking to you,
I guarantee you we're just as
you could be Zendaya. I mean, I'm so excited. Anyways, but listener, if there is a book in you, write it. And if there's fucking in it, I'll read it.
And then she'll come on this show and explain it to me for your entertainment. And then maybe we'll interview the author at a later date.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And this is usually where we do the outro.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.